how? Like how? We 20 some years to be specific, like 20. It was actually 20 years on the dot. You see a football program. We played Indiana back in the day. So even being here at Penn State, you play Indiana and you go there and there's only, I don't know, 10,000 people at most in the stadium. And even on their best years, they still were just very average, and it's very hard to win. And so then you're watching this thing come together and you're like, how the hell is this happening? And boy, I don't know. It's so funny because I couldn't be more happy, like just watching it and knowing the people that are involved and having that invested interest. But I'm not going to lie to you. Major FOMO. I mean, major, like Krista and I sat there liking, kind of watching the national championship, but thinking, oh my God, this would have been so awesome. So much fun. So yeah. But I'm excited. I was just got off the phone before we jumped on with a longtime alumni who does like venture capital, and we were talking about the same thing. It's just like, can you believe what the Indiana Hoosiers did? And just now, first of all, what they did, is it sustainable? Like now, how do you keep building and keep going? But going from what it looks like from a distance, that recruiting class, the transfers. It looks like they aren't going to miss a beat. I heard there's plans for a brand new stadium. I mean, Cubans backing them.
Yeah. I mean, in today's world of college athletics, and talking specifically about football, you have to have three things. You have to have a really good coaching staff that obviously can coach on the field, but also knows how to manage all the dynamics with today's landscape. You have to have success in recruiting, both high school recruiting and the transfer portal. And you got to have money. Like whether you like it or not, it is the reality today that you've got to have the money to be able to recruit and retain the players that are being offered elsewhere. And that's why I think IU, like, it all came together. They've got all three right now, and if they're concerned about sustainability, I don't see, hopefully, knock on wood, all three just suddenly going away. I mean, it's unreal.
And one thing that's a credit to the Hoosiers, because you knew there's a good alumni base. Everybody talked about it being the largest alumni base, all this yada, yada, yada. But when they went to the national championship, I cannot get over the fact of the amount of red. I mean, at least from the vantage point I was looking at from a distance on TV, I mean, the red that was everywhere, and the people that traveled and the people that came out of the woodwork. And then you look at social media and the whole town is dancing around, and it's all for a football program, and a football program that everybody just kind of, I don't know, bashed and kind of wrote off. And yet when you win, it brings them together. Alumni from all around the country, hell, all around the world, all united. And it was pretty special. I mean, that was a really special deal to not only see the national championship, but then how that national championship, it really brought an organization together that there's no hotter brand out there right now than the Indiana Hoosiers across the board. So it's pretty special.
Yeah.
Not that I'm
winning is fun.
Not that I'm missing any of it, but I mean, God.
Winning's fun. It's also really expensive. We were fortunate to go to all three bowl games. At the Rose Bowl, I remember walking to a bar, and I was there early, so I just went up to the bar itself, and it sat next to two Alabama guys, and I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting, but I didn't really say anything, and one of them turned to me, and they're like, dude, where are all you guys coming from? I go, what do you mean? He goes, everywhere we turn around, it's nothing but Indiana people out here. I go, well, you got to remember, this is new for us. This is like old hat for you guys.
A lot of pent-up demand.
So I figured the Rose Bowl was almost like a 2/3, 1/3 scenario where it's 2/3 IU.
Dude, it was 95-5, easily.
The Rose Bowl?
Oh, yeah. 95% IU fans.
The Peach Bowl in Atlanta, 100% was all like IU.
90%
other than
IU fans.
You looked out, you saw one little swath of green, like, oh, there's your Oregon fans. Like, no, that's the Oregon band.
Oh, yeah.
So there wasn't many Oregon people there. And then in Miami, it was probably
65%.
You didn't say it was that much? I was going to say 60-40, but either way, IU pretty much dominated because it's so new to us. And anyway.
And it is funny, too. Like, I'll give you a little behind the scenes. It is new, and you can tell, like, it's funny at Penn State, like, when you're winning, it's much more organized as far as, well, actually, I shouldn't speak on this. It's just from the way I see it. So when you're winning and going to bowl games, there's like, you could kind of really manipulate tickets and stuff like that. It just seemed like Indiana was all brand new and everybody's just buying tickets and everybody's just buying everything. And it's just like, rah, where I think now when it becomes something that is just done over and over again, you'll systematize it, and all of a sudden, like it'll just be, it's only going to grow from here, because you could tell it was a little disjointed, and yet, to the credit, you're dealing with a minimum of like 60-40 at a national championship game, in which, like, I mean, it just didn't even make sense. It was in Miami, right. And yet, like, all you had to do was go out the door, and yet you guys still beat them. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I love it. I think it's the greatest. I think it's the greatest story in college athletics ever. Like, I cannot wrap my head around it, and it's pretty special. So,
yeah. Well, to your point, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here.
Well, before we get really going into the intro, I wanted to make a statement. But before I make the statement, I want to sort of pre-qualify it by saying I want to talk a little trash. But I mean, if this was a guest from Purdue, it'd be like real trash. If it was a guest from Ohio State, it'd be real trash, because like no one likes Ohio State.
True.
But being at Penn State, it's a Big Ten competitor, but like there's some schools in the Big Ten like that people were more friendly with than others. So I felt like I could say that I'm never daunted, so I can make this statement. But from here on out, throughout the rest of the interview, you can refer to me as Omar Cooper Jr. That's it. That's the statement right there.
Oh, God.
Mr. Toe Tap, Omar Cooper Jr.
Yeah. Wow.
Tom's a competitor. He's an alum, but he also spent several years at IU. So, like, I don't know.
I mean, I know State
College. It's
a
love-hate relationship.
State College is gorgeous, but Bloomington is God's country.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Industrious Podcast. Thank you all for joining us from wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're joining us on the Accessa YouTube channel, thank you for doing so. While you're there, click on the subscribe button, hit that notification bell icon so you can be alerted when new episodes like this one drop. Whether you're from Bloomington, Indy, State College, PA, doesn't matter. We're happy to have you, and welcome. All right, special guest today. You already heard us talking here. Mr. Tom Morris. Tom is the Assistant AD of Athletic Performance at Penn State University, or I should say the Penn State University.
We are.
Yeah. Thank you, Vince.
He is also, as we'll call him, a change maker and the author of Note of Strength, and we'll touch on those here in a little bit. Tom, welcome to the Industrious Podcast. All right, well, let's start with a little background intro on yourself, if you would, Tom.
Yeah, I'm from a small little coal mining town, northeast Pennsylvania, population of about 500. Grew up kind of just, normal kid, always involved in athletics. Had the opportunity to go to Penn State, where I did my undergrad and grad school. At that point is where I really kind of fell in love with the idea of performance, the idea of being able to get in and not only compete in athletics, but to actually go and train athletes, help them with the physical aspects of what sport is all about. And so at that point is when I dove deep into becoming a strength coach. And I did my graduate assistantship out here back in, I guess it was 2002. Went to grad school and all the way through. Took my first job at LaSalle University as a director of performance there. Spent some time with the Eagles. And then we are about 20 years ago, I was able to go to Bloomington, Indiana, where I became the director of strength conditioning for the Hoosiers for over 20 years, and spent time working with every team there, but primarily our men's soccer program. I shouldn't say our. See, it's still. It's
no,
fine.
Once a Hoosier, always a Hoosier.
I mean, it's just hard to get rid of that language. But yeah, but 27 years ago, I ended up moving into Bloomington, Indiana, and worked with them, and had a great time. But as of recent, 3 years, I guess it is now, moved back to Penn State. And Penn State here working as the assistant AD for athletic performance, which is basically in charge of all of strength conditioning and our sports science and a lot of the other aspects to performance around our student athletes.
So your role is not just football, but is it the entire athletic department, like all the programs?
It is actually, yeah. And with football, we have more of a focus that locks in on them. So although I get to kind of oversee it all, we actually have a lot of pieces in place that football has a lot of their own resources, and we kind of get to be able to dabble in and out of them, but we do have a lot of stuff that's structured in there. For me itself, we have 30 other teams in there, including everybody from wrestling to rugbies to you name it, all the other Olympic sports, and that's where I spend primarily the most amount of my time.
So speaking of the Olympics, we're coming off the end of the Winter Olympics now. How would you translate maybe some of the training for Olympic focused athletes or Olympic type sports versus the football or kind of a mainstream American collegiate sports?
Yeah, there's a lot of common themes to all of sport and all of training. I mean, what we're trying to do is get the body structured physically and balanced throughout. So when you have that synergy of how the body moves, that's going to help you out in football and in soccer and in all the other sports. So we really work the strength and conditioning aspects with a lot of similar kind of X's and O's with that. What really for us comes down to is the specifics of the more of the movement, the agility, the specifics of the conditioning. Men's soccer obviously is going to have a tremendous amount difference in how they train fitness wise compared to a football player, let alone a diver or anything like that. And so there's a lot of changes within the strength and conditioning, but not as much. A lot of the area that we really focus on is the actual mechanics of how they move, the fitness levels, the actual speed and agility, how that actually directly correlates to what practices are going to be. And then the more that we can put them in those kind of patterns, the better they're able to take that in there and actually get involved in the practices of their sport. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to make them, in a sense, stronger, faster, more explosive, more powerful, but we got to do that. We got to make them that way so that therefore they can put it into sport itself, put it into practice to then become the better athlete on there. And if you're looking at football, you're looking at wrestling, you're looking at any of the other Olympic sports, the same theme is true on that, is get the body as durable as you can, get it as ready as you can, and then let them go and practice their sport. So therefore it ends up allowing them to really kind of soar as high as they can.
So you would say that Omar Cooper's physical training really paid off well to do the toe tap?
It helped. I mean, when you got that flexibility, you got that power, it really adds some style to it.
It did, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't have done that? I mean, not a big deal.
So one of the things that I kind of opened up saying I was really excited about this interview because as I was doing the homework, I came across the article on statecollege.com where it was a somewhat brief interview about your background coming to Penn State. And then there was a section there that talked about the Morris 7. I was like, oh, what is this? And it was kind of like, words to live by. So I started reading them. I read through the 7 and then kind of read through how the article summarized them. And I was like, I wonder which one's going to be my favorite. Like which one really draws my attention the most. And I'd be honest, I didn't have a favorite. I was like, all 7 of these are like jewels. But I wanted to kind of ask you to touch on those and how that came up in the interview. And is that something that you kind of really bring out into your work life, personal life, whatever? But I think if there's any one I had to pick out, first off, well, there's 2. One was the listen. Like if someone comes into your office and says, hey, do you have a minute to talk? It's like everything pauses and you just say yes. But then beyond that, make the first day's 10 minutes count. And then there was a little quote, there's like win the morning. Can you touch on like where that came from and how you bring that to life?
Yeah, well, we'll start with the first one on there. the first one about when someone does come to your office, comes to your door in a sense, just pause, stop, and everything stops and you listen. And that came from Jerry Yeagley. I mean, longtime Hoosier, legendary coach. And so in 2006, 2005, I guess it was, I got to start working with the Indiana Hoosier soccer program. And I start working with them, and you meet Jerry Yeagley, and you just immediately feel this energy, this positivity. You feel this guy that not only is going to be an epic soccer coach, but he's the legendary guy with this overall just love for that team, that university. And so sat down and started talking to him, and he told me that number one thing. He says, you're a young coach in this field right now. The number one thing I could tell you is just make sure you listen to the athlete. And he said the one thing that I always lived by, no matter how the day was going, no matter what I had going on, that if one of those athletes came to my door and they needed to tell me something, they needed to just want to talk, they said everything stopped. He's like, I got off the computer, the phone was away, and everything stopped, and I gave them 100% attention. And I remember that you're a young person. I was bouncing off the walls all over the place. And I remember when the first opportunity came, and I'm in my office, and somebody came in and just said, "Hey, do you got a second?" And I thought, "Oh, this is this opportunity." And we didn't have. It was 2005. It wasn't like there was phones we had them, but they weren't like as popular. But I do remember making sure that I got off my computer and I sat there, and he sat across from me, and we just talked. Didn't look at anything else, just looked at him, had eye contact, and he shared some stuff that I just could not believe. Like, I'm his resource for what he's saying. And so after that, it just became this idea that anytime that an athlete or even a staff member or anybody, it doesn't matter who it is, my wife comes to me and just needs me to give her attention or to be able to listen, I put everything down. I put the phone away. I put everything away, and I try to pause and just give 100% attention, because it is just so important. And it's something that is a big challenge these days, because of how many times you're sitting in a meeting and all of a sudden it's like, hold on a second, and someone picks up their phone and starts looking, and they're like, oh, go ahead, what were you saying? Like, it is so detracting, and when you're in a leadership role, it becomes one of the biggest things to really, really building up that bond and that tightness. And that's what coaching is all about. So that one came from Jerry Yeagley. And then the second one, win the morning, win the day. I'll be honest, I don't know where it came from, but I just am 100% believer in the fact that in the morning when you wake up, you have your opportunity to win. If you win that morning, you prepped yourself for the entire day. And the way that I break it down is the same as a soccer player, a basketball player, any athlete. If you took, what sports did you guys played sports, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
all of them. We grew up before club sports, so back in our day, you just played everything when it was in that season.
Right? Oh, me too. I totally understand that. But think about a basketball game. Could you imagine being thrown into the 38th minute of the basketball game? The game's on the line, the intensity's high, and then you didn't warm up. You just rolled out, threw a pair of gym shorts on, and they just threw you into the Indiana Hoosier basketball, like into Assembly Hall, and now they say, hey, last 2 minutes, here's a bunch, you got to go and score. If you went from that scenario, went from in your jeans to a pair of shorts to getting dropped into 2 minutes left in the game when the game's on the line, you will not only fail, you will put yourself at risk of injury and all the other things that would have happened. And so the way that I look at win the morning, win the day is we've got to give ourselves that morning time to warm up into the day. We've got to give our morning time to get our minds right, get ourselves locked in, to start thinking the way that we want to think instead of just jumping into a day that is full of information that's coming across a phone. I mean, heck, you could find stuff from, if you open up that phone bright and early in the morning, you got Iran, you got China, you got something that might come across political, you got everything that has so much weight, and it's just like getting dropped into that basketball game. If you don't, or if you're not prepped, if you don't win the morning over with the good fundamentals of waking up and actually taking control of it and gradually building in your day, you'll not only fail, you will put yourself at risk of injury. You'll put yourself at risk of mentally burning out. And so it becomes a really fundamental process for me to win that morning and use that to just ignite my entire rest of the day.
So first off, that's perfect. This kind of the theme of the podcast is really, it's somewhat business oriented in terms of people trying to glean advice or maybe find commonality with other people in various industries, because at the end of the day, no matter what we do differently, our challenges are all pretty much the same. So, that mentality that you just shared clearly will work with athletes, especially collegiate athletes, because, they look to you as not just a coach or a AD, but as a mentor. But that crosses the spectrum, all the way. So that was pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, and it's true. Like when we talk fundamentals, and I'm happy we would definitely dive into it. The fundamentals of just being a human and performing. If you're an athlete, or if you're a CEO, or if you're the mailman, or if you're a teacher, it doesn't matter what you are. You can plug in anything, but the body still runs on systems. The body still runs on certain systems that it takes not only proper hydration, proper food, exercise, sleep. It takes a system of when this stuff actually has to go into your body. So if you want to be a high performer or be the best at anything, or even if you just want to be average, you still have to plug yourself into those right systems. Winning the morning is just part of a system that you have to have, or you ultimately will not achieve the highest level, or you'll put yourself at a risk of having some kind of injury or some kind of major challenge in life.
I can attest to the fact that if I don't get enough sleep, I'm not only do I perform at a lower level, but I'm just less what I want to say, people don't like to be around me as much. Most notably my wife.
No, I share that same. I am the exact same way. It's when you don't get sleep in the right way, when everything's just a little off. Boy, it is. That's what happens with our body and our mind. Everything, our perspective, our irritability, everything just changes. But the great thing is about it, when you do get the right sleep, when you do get the right hydration, when you're putting the right things into your mind and you're seeing the world with a better, more upbeat, positive perspective, what it does, it just opens up anything opportunities in front of us. So we not only have better relationships with our spouses, we're much bigger we're much more set up for a better business plan, to be able to sit in a boardroom, to have better opportunities as an entrepreneur. You see the world better if you create a better system around it.
Tom, where did Notice Strength come from?
Yeah, so it's incredible. So I love to speak and I love to share, but some reason taking the thought in my head and actually putting it in pen to paper has always been a little bit of a challenge for me. But I have a lot of thought, a lot of life experience, and I'm a big person on we should all tell our story. I just think every one of us have a story, and every one of us have an audience for that story, and so it's our responsibility to be able to share that. And so the great world of ChatGPT, the great world of some of the AI, I remember I would write some stuff out, but from grammar to spelling to just a perfect flow always challenged me. And so I took that, I have a bunch of stuff that I wrote, and I remember dropping in this 300 little word essay into ChatGPT, and it cleaned it up. And I thought, wow, this is exactly like this. This sounds great. And so I just sent it out to a handful of people, maybe 100 people on my email list. And there was just such a really positive response, not in the way that it was written or anything, but just in the thought of what actually was behind it, the story that was shared and the thought behind it. So from there, I just started writing all of them, editing them, and then putting together this whole library of what Notice Strength is. And Notice Strength is simply a 300-word little essay, a little 300-word little note that is usually a story-based and something that I either live or did or lived, or a story that I heard. And I put that together, wrote it down, and decided on Mondays I'm going to send it out to an email list. And then that email list just kept growing and growing, and it kept getting bigger, and it kept getting better. And now that little 100 person, the first 100 people that were on it, that thing has turned into like 4,000 or so. And it just seems like more and more each week, it just keeps getting a little bit broader with the amount of people that are going in, and then who the people are that are coming on board with it. So yeah, it's a bunch of the random thoughts that are in my head that I've been fortunately able to have a vehicle to be able to put out on paper and hopefully resonate and help people out.
So that first essay was like your Jerry Maguire moment, and now you've gone from touching 100 people to thousands.
Yeah, it's so neat, and honestly, that's been my mission. That's been my mission ever since, especially even, obviously I have my own stories 14 years ago with this accident, but being able to get out and not only sharing about that accident and some of the different things that I've learned along the way, but really giving some fundamentals and give hope to people that, we're all going to struggle with different things in our lives. And some people are going to have some really serious things they got to deal with by all stretches of the imagination. But others will struggle with winning the lottery. You can win $100 million. I met a person that won $100 million off the lottery, and I could not tell you, it felt like the end of the world was happening, having the conversation with them. But it's all that perspective, and it's all geared around the systems that you live in and how you create those better relationships, and where you could truly find that inner joy. And I just think that I've been able to live it. So now I think it's my responsibility to share it with an audience that hopefully just keeps growing.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that, so I'll give some context to our listeners. As you mentioned, 14 years ago, you had an accident, and that the same article and some others talks about out mountain biking, getting an accident, and are paralyzed. So for our listeners, I think just making that statement, we're interviewing a guy who is wheelchair bound, but you wouldn't know in any way from the way you present yourself. I mean, the way you talk. And so what my question was that I wanted to touch on was, were you this way beforehand, or was there something post-accident in your recovery and your battle to get, back to what you felt like was some sense of normal that brought a different perspective to you that shifted your outlook on life? Yeah,
it's a question that I still I go back and forth on, because just being human, I had this accident when I was 32 years old. So at 32 years old, I was a lot more, less mature than I am here at 33 years old. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I'm only 17. At least that's what my wife says again.
But I look at it in a way of like, is this the person that I was before the accident? And there are a lot of elements of it that are yes. I just believe, like, growing up, we were always taught, like, be grateful for what you have. You should be really, really locked into what you have in life, and always keep working work your butt off to try and get everything that you can and live out your goals and your dreams. But be very grateful about where your feet are under, or where the ground is underneath your feet. And so that was always something that was brought into our lives growing up. And so when this happened, and who I am today, there's a lot of the same fundamentals as who I was beforehand. But that accident, there's no doubt, has changed me drastically. It's made me have to go from being the person that, obviously movement is a lot harder now, but it's made me have to slow down. It's made me have to look at myself in a different light and understand fundamentally who I am from a real deep internal introspective feel. And I don't know if the accident exactly did that, or just age also played on that. But let's just say that as I grow older, as I keep getting more and more into this life, there is a very much almost a cycle that I just keep looking at myself of growth and what is fundamentally there that allowed me to be in front of you right now and have a smile on and be authentically joyful, and still not having the life I had before. I mean, not being able to bike, not being able to hike, not being able to roll on the ground and all the other things, and have all these other concerns. And I don't miss it. Yes, I do. I do miss it 100%. And if I could go back to it, I would. but I don't miss it and I don't put it in my daily language. It's just it's a way to sit here and go, this is what I got. I've accepted what I don't, and I'm going to live in a place that's full of gratitude for this moment with you all. So that's a really long-winded answer to say, I don't know. I think that I'm just continuing to keep growing, and I think that's a special part. I think being able to just sit in the moment and go, did you get better today than you did yesterday, and are you going to continue to keep growing? That's where my mentality sits as we sit here today on this beautiful Friday evening.
Yeah, no, I love that thought because, as a father of 3 teenagers, one of the lessons that my wife and I try to impart on them is kind of touching on what you said. Is it okay to say that you miss something? Yes, but how do you miss it? Do you miss it just by saying I embrace the fact that I miss it, or do you miss it with regret? And it's the same thing we try to teach our kids and in our business. When we make mistakes or something happens that doesn't go our way, it's okay to say, hey, that was a mistake, or I missed something, or I messed something up. But to carry the regret forward with you is what you've got to be able to let go of.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, I heard this great thing with Kobe Bryant. I just love Kobe Bryant interviews. But they ask him about, the fact of did you ever fail? And he's like, no, I never failed. Failing's kind of a made up deal. And they break it down, and he breaks it down why. And he talks about the idea that failure you only truly fail if you don't allow the story to just keep going. And he's like, I reflected on the times I've lost different things. I've reflected on many different aspects of my life that I may have not technically succeeded. But the story, it just continues on. And that's how my life is right now. Is there's no doubt if I could jump on a bike and go out there and ride around, I'd do it in a second. But I know that the story still continues. The story still keeps moving on. And that's how we live each and every day. And I think that's extremely powerful to understand, hey, the idea is put all the chips on the table, live it out, because regret's the one thing that you can't take back. But just know that if you fail in this moment, as long as you continue on, the story continues. And that's a really powerful idea.
I do have a correction to make. You do still go out. It may not be on a 2-wheel bicycle, but your own form of transportation there. So you're still doing it, man.
I'm still doing it. Just got to do it differently. And that's what's been that's been the gift. It's been the great thing that I've been able to get that part of my life, but get it back, just do it a little bit differently. But it's interesting because the shoulders aren't meant to do what those legs did. And so now I'm at this, maybe we'll call it a crux of my life, where these shoulders are really getting wear and tear. So now it's this world of do you keep trying to crank, or do you find joy somewhere else? Because quite frankly, I don't have the luxury to say, let's just get shoulder replacement. Because if you do that, independence kind of gets wiped out. So now it's just this thing of I'm going to enjoy what I got, but then at some point I'll probably transition away from that mountain biking world, and there'll be something else, because the story will continue, and I'll continue to keep trying to find this area of life that is fulfilling. So yeah, it's a pretty. I just love the idea that it doesn't matter. I've coached the best athletes. I've coached some of the top performers, people that have made a ton of money, and it doesn't matter what the scenario is. If you still got breath, you still got energy, you still got life. If you could own that, the story still continues. And so this finite time that we have together on this earth, go after it and go get it. And that is the way that I try to live each and every day.
Yeah, I think we could transform that thing into an e-bike, though, couldn't we?
We could. Well, I have a little throttle on that thing too. And let me talk about. You're talking epic mountain. There's a whole mountain bike park that sits right off. We're right off a ski resort here, and there's a mountain bike park right out that window. So there's a will, there's a way. There's definitely there's always some way to figure it out.
I'd like to say that you mentioned ski resort, and then we're talking about, being paraplegic. I think that when I go skiing and I see, especially the paraplegics, in the sleds, they are the most impressive, ballsiest. I am just in awe at I love it. I love seeing, and then now, so we have the Olympics part 2. I don't think does it start in a week?
Is it?
Yeah. I like watching that almost as more than I like watching the normal, because these people are just, it's unreal to me. It is so awesome.
Downhill slalom in one of the mono skis. It's great because when, growing up as a skier, when you have 2 skis, you got 2 edges that are carving. When you get on that mono ski and your whole body is going back and forth, but you got to remind you, like, for me, I'm chest down, so I don't even have a core. And so when you're trying to get that ski to lean and you don't really have a core, but you're just defying gravity and you got one edge holding you, there is nothing more. It terrifies you, but it makes you it ignites every little nerve in your body. So yeah, I agree. I think it's just super cool to be able to do. I just literally got off the phone with Adaptive Aspen. We're doing a lot of cool things out there, and Telluride as well. But trying to just put a lot of things together around those ideas, like give the opportunity for sport to be around adaptive athletes. And it's really cool here, and you say that like you almost watching that or seeing that is even like more exciting, because I do think in the world of adaptive sports, they're incredible athletes, they're incredible competitors, and they just got to do things differently. But the game itself is still extremely entertaining and extremely ferocious. All the X's and O's of why we love sport, it happens in adaptive sports. And so, yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff that I think is going to hopefully continue to just keep growing.
Well, I'm glad to hear. So it sounds like you get on the slopes then.
Yeah, it's cool. Except for this one here is funny. This is like one of the small, old school single. You remember like the old wooden ski lift, 2-person single one, and it does not. The only way it stops is if they shut it off. And so getting on and off that with a mono ski is a little bit challenging. And let me just tell you, I've tumbled off of that thing a few times, and so I don't do it as much up here, but I've still gotten out and skied pretty much all over the country. It's been pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Awesome. What else you got?
There's only one other of the 7 that I want to touch on, and you kind of talked about this, but I wanted to call it out specifically because I want to understand where this came from. And it's the live the 90% rule. Like, what is the 90% rule? And I'm asking this because, again, kind of bringing this back to anyone listening, that whether it's personal life, professional life, no matter what your professional life, industry, whatever you're in, like, this is all applicable. So, but just what can you define for us what the 90% rule is?
I can, but I'm going to throw it back to you real quick. When you read the 90% rule, how did you kind of interpret it? Because it's funny, because it's I know the way it was written, and which is great, but when we give it to, we do this sometimes with our athletes, and it's funny how they interpret what the 90% rule, what that means, and how they kind of interpret it. So can I throw it back on you to let me just hear your interpretation of it?
That was the problem I had, and that's why I asked, because in the article that I was reading that touched on all these, the follow-up was so short that I was like, okay, I kind of think I get it, but I want to hear more from you, like where that's coming from.
I think that we're capable of just so much more. Like, I just think that many times in our lives there's a feeling where we come almost to a point where we want to hold back in a sense. Like, we don't put it all out on the table. We get fearful. We get into this place where we're just we resort, because the friction's gotten high or the challenge has gotten too much, that we just end up putting on the brakes. And I think that when we're feeling that, when we're actually at that point, that is the point where we're actually going to start growing. That's the point where everything pays off once you start feeling on that. And in sport or in training, we would always use the idea of if you're not wanting to quit, you're not going hard enough. If it's not burning, it's actually not making the difference. difference. And so working in that world, I just think that that's where we get that extra percentage. That's where we're able to put ourselves into a headspace of we need to put ourselves into a place where we are terribly uncomfortable right now, because it's only through that discomfort, it's through that uncomfortableness, this time when we start questioning in our head, is it worth it to keep going on, that we truly fall that sweet spot that if you do, if you keep moving forward, if you keep continuing to move that grind and you sharpen yourself just a tad, this is the thing that's going to pay off the biggest way. And I've seen this play out time and time again. And in my own personal life, there's been many, many, many things that I've wanted to kind of bail on. And it just seems like that when you hit that sweet spot, you end up finding the place that you end up coming over the hump, and then you fall into that place where you have the most success ever. And it's not the biggest things that I always realize is that it isn't the success of maybe the financial side or the titles that you end up getting. It's the fact that you've accomplished the process. You've gone through it, you've grinded, and you've continued to keep moving. And I think of that in my own way. Even with this rehab, the goal is obviously to walk. The goal is to gain your life back. Obviously, I'm not walking, but that doesn't take away from the whole process itself. I still feel just as much alive as I ever would, walking or not. And throughout that process, there was a million different times that I was just like, I've had enough. I don't want to keep going. But having that mentality of no, having enough, wanting to quit, I'm finally at the point where we're right at the door. We just got to push through this. And so that's what that whole idea is that we don't work with 100% capacity. We're always trying. There's more to every single thing that we do. And we just got to get that language, that feeling to transpire another reaction or response in our system, because it becomes the special response that makes us go from being average or good to just be exceptional. And I think that's where that sweet spot ends up lying.
Well, sounds like winners do things that losers hate to do.
I love that.
I'd say your answer was a lot better than mine, because when you asked me, I was like, well, the way I took it was it's a function of something generic like live to your potential or something like that. Your answer was much, much better. But I'm going to say that I'm going to make my kids listen to this episode, because I tell all three of them, particularly when it comes to sports, that you're never playing an opponent, you're playing yourself. And what I mean is you're playing against your potential. And if you play to the very best of your potential, win or lose, it doesn't matter, but your chances of winning are much, much higher. And then responds like, okay, Dad. So now I'm going to have a different, like someone who's not their father. It's just like why you have why you have someone else teach your
Uncle
kids
Tom.
in school. Yeah. Like, hey, listen to what Uncle Tom has to say and follow his advice. If you don't want to listen to me, listen to this guy.
Well, to your point, it's such a great, it is the point, like our wrestling program, the most elite program due to, I mean, you're both basketball guys. I get it. Indiana. Yeah. But wrestling out here, right? The most 12 national championships in the last 14 years. We just wrestled Ohio State. Ohio State is number 2. They redshirted their entire team last year because they strategically set it up that they were going to beat us this year. We just beat them 36-3. And so, I mean, total dominance. Like number 3, Iowa, we beat 46-0. Like we haven't lost a match in over 90-some match. Like it's just the most insane statistics. But I say this a little to gloat, but the primary thing is the fact that our program out here. You think of wrestling, you think of this alpha dominant, like just these grinders. It couldn't be more opposite. Everything that we talk about is gratitude. Everything they talk about is going through the process. They don't watch film on other wrestlers. They know what they want to do. They want to push tempo. They want to be aggressive. They want to control the things that are in their control, and they want to be the dictators of everything. And to your point, if they win or lose, it's irrelevant. I've seen guys lose a national championship that shouldn't have won, and they come off the mat and they're just like, I'll get him next year. And to say that is one thing. To believe it is a whole different level. And what that program has instilled over and over again is this. If you win or if you lose, you're going to be forgotten. But if you do the process, if you're in the system, you're grinding, you do everything you got inside to give everything to every single day, it will make your life fulfilled. It'll allow you to have the best opportunity to have the wins. And Coach Cale Sanders says, like, we love the win, but there's no doubt we want to win. But at the end of the day, it comes down to 100%. What is our effort? Are we going to do the best that we can? And if you gave everything you got, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. And he means that in a way. If you win or lose, like, he doesn't emphasize either one of them either way. It's all about the process. And so I just think there's nothing more special than that, especially for kids to hear, because, the message is not that. And I think right now what we're doing is kind of a disservice, and that would be a tangent all in itself. But knowing that it does come down to them showing up each and every day, them being intentional when they wake up in the morning, them being intentional with how they go about their practices, and do they tie their shoes before they go in? Do they do like some of the fundamental things that we know will give them success? How well do you do that? And I think all that stuff is the stuff that adds up.
Yeah, well, so it's dealing with not just the competition, but the competition of your own head.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
All right. Well, Thomas, we greatly appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us. We won't keep you from that porch and the impending sunset. Always enjoy talking to you. Always enjoy getting your perspective on life. It's much needed.
I'm gonna go home and run to a wall right now. I'm so jacked up.
There you go.
And I would say, the best part, I keep coming back to this article because of all the things I looked at, this one stuff, it was like the best summary. But the article started, I was like, man, this guest and I have a lot in common, because it started with ruggedly handsome with a slightly graying beard and blue eyes that always peer into yours. I thought, other than the eye color, they got nailed.
It's so funny. When I read that article for the first time, I thought, wow, that's a hell of a way to start the article. I was very grateful for it. I had to take it. I printed that thing out and I gave it to my wife, and I said, you see? Yeah, pretty amazing.
All right. Well, Tom, thanks again. We appreciate it. By the way, speaking of the beautiful wife, tell your better half we said hello.
Will do. This has been great, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Likewise. Same to you. Thanks, buddy. See ya.